I'm Craig Rotzler with WCG FDA News, and welcome to today's webinar on how to standardize your lab investigation process, increase efficiency, and reduce risk with consistent process. At this time, all participants are in a listen-only mode. Please feel free to prepare your questions for our presenters. We're going to conduct a live question and answer session following the presentation. If you'd like to ask a question, simply type your question in the area provided and press enter. Questions will not be viewable to the other attendees. I'd like to encourage you to submit your questions at any time during the presentation, and our panelists will be happy to address them at the end. I'd like to introduce our moderator. Our first speaker today is Art Gehring, the Vice President of Marketing with ETQ. Art, it's great to have you with us today. Kick it off to you.
Well, thanks, Craig. I'm really happy to be here, and we have a great agenda for you. I'm happy and honored to introduce some of my colleagues at ETQ. First, I want to start with Kim Wakeman, who is ETQ Product Manager and has been with ETQ for over 5 years and has over 20 years with medical device manufacturer Varian Medical Systems. So she's got extensive experience in this particular area. Also joining us is Eric Dano, a solutions engineer with over 6 years experience at ETQ, helping quality professionals like yourselves streamline their processes across a wide range of industries. Welcome, Kim, and welcome, Eric. Great to have you. So before we get started, I just want to talk a little bit or introduce ETQ. And actually, before I even do that, let's just talk quickly about the agenda today. Quick introduction, introduce you to our speakers and ETQ, and then Kim will give you an overview of lab investigations, what problem we're solving, and what the solution can do for you. And Eric will be providing a demonstration, and then we'll be answering as many of your questions as we can. Encourage you, as Craig did, to enter those at any time, so you can get those in and we can answer them. But as I said, just a little bit about ETQ. We're a leading provider of QMS software. Excited to share that we were acquired by a company, Hexagon, 9 weeks ago, and I'll talk a little bit about them and what that means a little later. But first, just on ETQ, we empower quality champions to use our quality management software as a catalyst to create competitive advantage through quality. We have an award-winning cloud-native solution. For example, we've been recognized by G2 as a category leader for 8 consecutive quarters running. We have a lot of experience. We've been at this for 30 years, serving over 700,000 customers who see us as their partner, not just as a software solution, but as their partner ensuring their success. Here's just kind of a quick sampling of some of our customers. As you can see, they span a wide range of industries. We have over 600 customers. As I said, a sampling that you can see here. And we help them regardless of where they are in their quality journey. We have customers that come to us as veterans, users of QMS systems, or first-time buyers, and we help them move forward wherever they are in their journey. We serve a wide range of industries, as you can see, which we see as a real advantage as we apply the learnings and best practices across those industries. So, for example, some of the APQP practices that we learn from our automotive customers has enriched our new product introduction capabilities across the solutions that we provide across all industries. Another great example is some of the customer management we learned from life sciences has enriched our customer feedback capabilities in our NCM application. And as you can see, many of these segments conduct lab investigations as part of their process, which is a great segue to turn things over to Kim Wakeman, who will tell you about this, the problems we're addressing, and more details on this solution. Over to you, Kim.
Thank you, Art. I am so excited to announce our newest application on the ETQ Reliance platform, Lab Investigations. So what is lab investigations? Oh, let me just go back one slide. Okay, so lab investigations is an application that documents the investigation process of an out-of-spec or out-of-trend test lab result. So what does that all mean, and what does that do for our customers? The problem we're trying to solve here is to provide our customers with a solution that helps them to manage these investigations. We have done a lot of research with various companies on this topic. We found through our research that many companies have this as a manual process where they find it challenging to keep track of the documentation that they have, who has the documentation, as well as provide visibility. They don't have visibility on their systemic issues to correct these problems or prevent these problems from reoccurring. They also have no visibility on their overall quality impact on these OOSs for their product. And it possibly could be life-threatening because they don't know what else is out in the field that could potentially harm their patients out in the field due to this OOS that they're finding. And it also overall impacts the branding and the reputation that they have on the market. So why is this valuable to our customers? It's valuable because it provides a consistent process for investigating these out-of-spec or out-of-trend results. It streamlines the process where it provides a much quicker time to resolve these issues. If those of you who have been audited, if you have a manual process out there, you realize that it's much more challenging to gather this documentation or this information for these auditors. And then also will improve the root cause analysis through identifying the systemic issues that you're having. It also improves the quality of the product from tracking and trending these deficiencies and overall helping the quality of your product. And also, it provides a good manufacturing practice by following these steps in this automated system. This process is suitable for multiple industries and any industry that has these solutions that they're testing, that have labs. But right now we're focusing more on, in this presentation, more of the pharma, biotech, medical device, those type of industries who could benefit from using this lab investigation application. Next, I'm going to be walking through the workflow or the process that we have implemented within our product. I'm going to be using some names here through this scenario that Eric is going to be demonstrating for us. So the first step is the initiate step. We're going to find that Tom, who's the lab analyst, who is entering the out-of-spec test lab results that he found in this as he was doing his testing. The second step is Annie. So Annie is the lab supervisor who would then go ahead and do the initial assessment of what was found from the out-of-spec results. She will start by going through the process to identify, is there a known issue? Is there something that we know right away up front that caused this out-of-spec result? If she identifies that that it is known, the issue is known, she has the ability to go ahead and skip the full investigation. If she does not know what the cause was, she can continue through the workflow process in conducting a full investigation, which is going more into the manufacturing investigation. You know, what in manufacturing may have caused this issue to happen. The next gentleman, Sean, who's our quality manager, he'd be responsible for approving the initial investigation as well as the final approval for the entire full investigation. So let's go through the scenario that Eric will be demonstrating. So Tom, who is our lab analyst, was testing a solution XYZ batch 56, and found that the test result was a 96%, below the required specification limit of 97% according to the test procedure. Annie has determined, after reviewing the initial lab investigation checklist, there was no known cause and a full investigation is required. Now, Eric, it's up to you to demonstrate this scenario.
Perfect, Perfect, Kim. Thank you for going over the scenario for us. What we'll do now is we'll go through the demonstration of that scenario in the live system, showcasing some of the capabilities of the steps in the process and the type of data that you can actually enter in during the process itself. So let's get started taking a look at our lab investigation scenario. In the initial step of the lab investigation workflow, Tom, the lab analyst who discovered the out-of-spec lab test result, has the ability to enter in the general information about the out-of-spec result, including the date it was reported, the type of result that was found, whether or not it was an internal or external laboratory, as well as identifying the initial criticality of the result. Tom has the opportunity to identify the reason for the investigation, putting in as much detail as necessary, as well as the opportunity to attach any supporting documentation to the test result. As time continues down in the record, he has the opportunity to identify the batch information. This information can be entered in manually, or this could be an opportunity to connect to another business system where this information might be stored and pulled over into the Reliance form. Tom has entered in the information about the batch, and now he's able to identify the test details themselves. These include information such as the date and time of the analysis, the sample ID information, the method or test number, as well as identifying the actual results that were found, as well as what the specification limits are for this particular material that was being tested. There's the opportunity here to also link over to our document control application where the actual SOP or test procedure might be stored. So you have the link to the actual information as to what procedure, what test SOP was being followed for this actual analysis that was being conducted. Now there is the ability to have the actual test results attached here as well if needed. In the final section that Tom has the ability to enter data into, he can enter the equipment information that was used during the testing process. This can include equipment ID information, equipment name, and the date that the equipment was last calibrated. There could be one piece of equipment or multiple pieces of equipment, and this is another opportunity to connect to yet another application within the Reliance platform, assets calibration and maintenance, where this data could also be pulled in automatically. There's the ability in this section to also identify any additional information about each of the pieces of equipment that was used during the testing process. At the top of the form is our workflow. In the initial step, Tom has essentially been able to enter in all the data that he needs to enter in at this point in the workflow process. To continue in the process, we will move the record through the various steps in the workflow. In the next step, the record is assigned to Annie to go through in determining, after reviewing the information that Tom has entered in, what additional steps might need to be taken, as well as identifying whether there is a known cause for the out-of-spec result, and then continuing, if necessary, through the full process. So Annie, who is now working on the record, is essentially able to review all the data that Tom has left in the record. The batch information, the actual material data, the testing process or procedure that was used, the equipment that was used during the process. And Annie is able to go through and go to the next section of the form, which is the laboratory investigation section. Here, Annie is able to identify and fill out the lab investigation checklist and attach it to the record. She's also able to identify whether she feels that additional testing is required. And when she selects yes, it gives her the opportunity to either set up a resampling or retesting testing activity, essentially either assigning Tom to redo the test once again, or assigning another analyst to check Tom's results against the additional lab analyst results. So in this example, Annie has chosen the resampling, which is again assigned to the original analyst. That creates another activity record associated directly with the lab investigation record that this process has been launched from. Now, this has its own workflow. So you go through a defined process for the testing activity, similar but different from the defined process for the lab investigation itself. So here, general information will be populated automatically. It will pull the batch information from the lab investigation form automatically as well. And during this process, we're able to identify the number of samples that need to be replicated and identify the justification for the number of tests. Now, once it goes through QC approval and is approved, it would move to the testing in progress step where the lab analyst is able to actually go through, retest, and actually record the results for each of the number of tests that were required. So in this case, there were 5 required. So Tom has gone through and identified the results for 5 additional tests. And in this example, none of them meet the specification. So he selected no on each one individually and no on the overall results meet specification. And Tom is obviously able to identify the summary results of the retesting activity. Once that record is completed, as you saw in the lab investigation record, we'll have the link to the information as well as the summary information from that resampling activity pull over automatically back into the lab investigation form. So resampling showed similar results. And then based off of that information, Annie has determined that this is not a lab error and that a full investigation is required. At that point, Annie has also identified a general summary of the lab investigation step that retest and resample both obtain similar test results. So this is not a lab error. We need to go through a full investigation at that point. Now, once the lab investigation itself is completed, it would then go to a lab investigation approval step where a stakeholder, a process owner, whatever the example might be, is going to actually approve the lab investigation itself and essentially approve it to move forward to the full investigation step of the process. Now, once that is done, the appropriate person that's assigned to that full investigation step is able to once again review all the information that has been entered in so far in the record, and then start filling out the information for the full investigation. Why the full investigation is required. They're able to go through a manufacturing investigation checklist and attach it to the record here. Now you can do additional testing here. In this example, we've chosen not to, but if you want to do resampling or retesting, you can identify that here as well. Now, once the full investigation checklist has gone through, and checked all the items that they need to check, they can identify whether there is an assignable manufacturing error. And if there is, as we selected here, we can actually identify the type of manufacturing error. Now, this is a selection box, multi-selection box, so it could be an environmental issue as well as a procedural issue. And that helps you categorize the actual errors so you can report on that information in the future. Now, in the manufacturing investigation summary section, we're able to, of course, identify what the summary of the investigation is and attach any supporting documentation to that particular record, or this particular section, I should say, so we can identify that in as much detail as we can at this point in the process. Now, maybe it's done here, maybe it's done other steps of the workflow process, but there is a risk assessment tie-in to our lab investigation record. So if you need to gauge the amount of risk that a particular lab result has on the product, on the company as a whole, whatever the risk item is, you can go ahead and launch a risk assessment at any point in the workflow process, and perhaps you do it at multiple points in the process. You can, of course, do that as well. As we continue in the process here, we're able to start identifying what we think or what we have found the root cause to be. So in this example, we've identified this as an environmental issue. We utilize the 5 whys root cause analysis process, and we've put in the summary of what we found the root cause to be. Now, of course, we have a field here to attach any additional evidentiary type of information to the root cause. In this example, we don't have anything, but you could attach any type of file here that you need to. Now, there is a section to relate current or past lab investigations that have been launched on this particular issue. Perhaps it was the same the material that had the out-of-spec result. Perhaps it was the same manufacturing error. Whatever the example might be, you can link those records together so you have full traceability into other occurrences of the problem that you can refer back to if necessary. Then there is a final conclusion section of the form, so you can identify what you found the final conclusion to be, why this happened. You can also identify here whether you need to initiate a non-conformance report or non-conformance record. Now, in this example, we've done so. The power behind this, of course, is that you have the ability to push this information from the lab investigation to either a non-conformance or a corrective action, whichever one makes sense. So if we think we need to do some additional testing, if we need to identify what we're going to do with this product that's out of spec or out of trend, we can launch into a non-conformance. If we know what the issue is, and we need to launch into a further investigation and perhaps implement a corrective action or preventive action, we could launch into a corrective action. And again, you have the ability to collect the information that's warranted or required as part of either one of those records and automatically push that data to either the non-conformance or the corrective action, or perhaps both if both are required at that point. Of course, the final step in the lab investigation process is the final approval and finally the close step. The final approval, obviously, you go through and determine, was everything followed properly? Did we go through the test, the retesting, the resampling? Did we identify the right, root cause? Do we perhaps require additional testing? And then finally close. Now, in either example, whether we need to go through corrective action and non-conformance, or we're ready to close the record, all those records are linked together, so you have full traceability into the entire process. Now, really quickly, I want to show an example of what happens when we determine that it is a lab error. We don't go through the entire workflow as you see up above in the workflow here. We went through the initial point in the process where, again, we collect all the information about the result. We go to that lab investigation step, but then after we've entered in the lab investigation information where we have identified that it was a lab error, in this case, a human related lab error, we're able to then skip immediately to the root cause final conclusion step, as well as identifying where you can identify, I should say, the root cause information. And just like we saw in the full investigation process, you can identify what the final conclusion is, and if you need to launch a non-conformance or a corrective action from this lab investigation record that was launched, but was determined to be a lab error rather than some sort of unknown error that we have to go through a manufacturing investigation checklist to determine what the actual issue is. So both scenarios are, of course, important. You want to collect those out-of-spec or out-of-trend lab results that both either go through the full investigation process, or perhaps you determine early on in the process that it was, yes, a lab error, and you still need to collect that information and be able to report on that information, because both are very important. Whether it's a manufacturing error, whether it's a lab error, you have one place to collect all that information and be able to, more importantly, perhaps report on that information in the future. Outstanding. So as we saw as it was going through the demonstration there's a lot of abilities to connect to other processes within our ETQ Reliance platform. So I just wanted to show really quickly that we're not just talking about a system that handles lab investigations. We're talking about a platform that can handle all of your quality processes, all the way from your standard quality processes like document control, training, audits and corrective actions, all the way through non-conformances, all the way through supplier management. So there's a lot of other capabilities within the platform, some of which you saw were connected already to the lab investigation process, so that you have a continuous loop of data within a single platform. And more importantly, have the ability to pull information from other systems when necessary. So like a LIMS system, for example, you have that test result that you collected in the LIMS system, the ability to launch a lab investigation in the ETQ Reliance platform is present, and certainly a capability of the platform as a whole. So we'll turn things back over to Art to just go over a quick kind of explanation as to where Hexagon fits into the ETQ story.
Thanks, Eric, and thanks, Kim, for that great overview. Yeah, I just wanted to touch quickly on something I mentioned, earlier in today's session about our acquisition by Hexagon. Very excited about that. They are a global leader in digital reality solutions, combining sensor, software, and autonomous technologies. They're also a leader in metrology and SPC, and that's an area where we see, and they see, some real opportunity to connect what we would call quality control on the shop floor to, excuse me, quality assurance. And, sort of at a higher level, really thinking about, they have a lot of great solutions to identify a problem, and then ETQ can help them determine whether this is a problem, or help customers determine whether this is a problem that needs action and what that action is, and managing the process of executing that action to resolution and continuous improvement. So very excited about that. However, I did want to mention that while we are excited to be part of Hexagon, we still work with any other solutions. As Eric started to allude to, we integrate with a wide range of solutions, SPC solutions, MES, ERP solutions, and CRM. It's a key value proposition of what we offer, and we'll continue to integrate with pretty much any solution. So just a little bit on that. Now I think we're ready to move into the Q&A. Here's a great time to enter your questions if you haven't already. And I think while we're answering your questions, I'm going to put up this slide that just shares a small sampling of a wide range of resources that we provide on our website. White papers, videos, webinar replays like these. All of those can be found on etq.com/resources. So Craig, I think Eric, you're going to be managing the questions. Do you see any questions there?
We'll just jump in here and just remind folks, if you'd like to ask a question, just to type your questions in the area provided and press enter. If you don't see that Q&A panel, if you're in full screen, maybe push the escape on your screen to exit out of full screen. You can type your questions in the area provided and press enter. We'll get to your questions if we can.
Perfect. So we do have a few questions to start off with here, and this will be answered by myself or Kim primarily. But one question we do have is, can the lab investigation process be launched automatically from a laboratory system when an OOS or OOT is detected in that other system?
Absolutely, great question. You know, and I think both Art and you, Eric, had answered this as well. So we do have the connections that we can set up between a LIMS system through other systems as well, directly into Reliance. You have trigger points within your system that would automatically create a record within ETQ Reliance, as well as we also have the ability to push information back from ETQ Reliance back into your system as well.
Excellent. Another question we have is, so the question here is, they see a lot of similarities with their process and how our form and workflow are laid out. Can the application, however, be configured to match any, uniqueness that they might have in the data that they're collecting or the steps in the process that they want to go through?
Absolutely. So our system is completely configurable, and it's one of those systems that you don't need to come back to ETQ to do these configurations. However, we do have a services team that can help support the configurations as well, and so you really can align your internal process with what you want by doing those configurations. We provide you an incredible starting point. However, we do allow the flexibility to make it your own.
Outstanding. Another question that we have, and more of a clarification than anything else, I suppose, is that so the lab investigation module is intended for lab testing result investigation versus other nonconformances or corrective actions that would be associated with the laboratory. Is that a correct assumption?
Yeah, so this process is really specific to a lab investigation, where NCMR might be something a little bit different, and then of course you have your corrective and preventive actions to correct those issues from happening again or prevent them from happening in the first place. So we do see this as a completely independent process. It also aligns to the FDA guidance for pharmaceutical OOS or OOT. And so we did, as we implemented this, we did follow the guidance that FDA had provided on this process as well.
Perfect. No other questions at this point. Actually, we do have one, sorry. So how would you recommend handling an unassignable cause? At what point would an unassignable cause become an issue?
Yeah, I mean, and so of course, if something is unassignable and you still don't know, you keep continuing through that investigation until you can determine what the cause is. You continue through that process until you have identified what the cause is, and so and through the approval process as well. Um, they can help identify, is this something that's truly unassignable, or is it something that we need to dig in a little bit deeper to understand, what the cause is. Another thing is too is you can track and trend these items as well. So maybe this is the first occurrence that this has happened, and you want to determine, is this something that happens again, and it will flag you, or you can have it flag you to say, up, you know what, we see another situation that's happened like we've had before, and so that can help lead the investigation as well.
I'm not seeing any additional questions at this time. Do you have any final thoughts before we wrap things up?
I'll chime in. I think this has been a great session. We greatly thank you all for taking the time to join us. Hopefully this has been of value to you, can help improve efficiency in your organizations. Wonderful job, Kim and Eric. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Craig, for hosting us today.
Well, thank you very much. And on behalf of WCG FTA News and ETQ, I would like to thank our participants for joining us today. Be sure to fill out the survey at the conclusion of this webinar. Your feedback is very important to us. I'll conclude today's webinar. Have a great day and hope you join us again in the future.